Yeah, I think without further ado, we'll get started. So good evening, everybody. My name is Sam Gralty. I'm the events manager with the Vermont Land Trust. And welcome to Shared Landscapes, a virtual tour across conserved lands of Windham County. Thanks for joining us. So if you're not familiar with Vermont Land Trust, we're a membership organization dedicated to protecting farmland, forest land, and community lands across the state. Since 1977, we've permanently protected over 650,000 acres, which equates to roughly 11% of the state. Like I just mentioned, a few Zoom reminders before we get started. Like I said, we are in a webinar, so we won't be able to see or hear you. But if you have questions for anybody during our presentation, there is a Q&A feature at the bottom. And I definitely encourage you to do that. We should have time for question and answer at the end. If you have any technical issues, feel free to chat with me, and I'll try to help you out there. One other thing about the Q&A feature, if you see a question that somebody else put in the Q&A that you also are curious about, you can give it kind of a thumbs up and upvote them, and we'll try to get to the ones that are most popular, have the most interest. And yeah, one other thing as well, if you want closed captions, those are also available at the bottom of the screen. And last but not least, we'll have a few things that we'll follow up with in an email at the end, but we are recording this and we're planning to post it on our YouTube page. So if you have to leave for some reason or you want to watch this again later or share it, we'll get that posted to our YouTube page in a few days' time, and we'll send the link out to everybody who registered. So, but yeah, tonight we'll hear from a few board members of some local organizations, and we'll hear obviously more details about the work that they each do. But we'll hear from John Gregg of the Mountain Conservancy, Mary Ellen Copeland. John Gregg of Windmill Hill Pinnacle Association, Mary Ellen Copeland of Green Mountain Conservancy, and Hannah Regier of Bull Creek Common Lands. But for now, I'll pass it over to my colleague, Jennifer Garrett, who is a program director down in Windham County, to talk a little bit more about what VLT does.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. How does that look?
That's looking great.
Great. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm a project director for Vermont Land Trust, and I work out of our Brattleboro office. One of my roles is to work with private landowners and entities like nonprofits and towns to conserve forest land in Windham County and some nearby areas. I also work with landowners of conserved land, folks that have land with a conservation easement, to help support their land stewardship and help them comply with their conservation easement terms. I'm going to expand a little bit on Sam's introduction to Vermont Land Trust. We're a statewide 501c3 nonprofit conservation organization with 52 employees who work in all regions of the state. You can see a map. The dark green, are the lands that we've conserved over the last 49 years. And our mission is to unite land and lives. We protect land and foster connections to farms and forests and community spaces that define us. We have over 3,000 members, and for the last near century, next year is our 50th anniversary, we've protected hundreds of thousands of acres of forest and farmland and community lands and water resources through holding conservation easements. We hold, I think, over 2,300, and we also own land. And last year, we protected almost 6,400 acres, including over 3,900 acres of forest land and over 2,400 acres of farmland. So tonight we'll hear from three of our nonprofit conservation partners that are having a big impact in Windham County. They're each building these protected, connected forest land preserves and also providing the community and the public with inspiring places to hike and enjoy nature. These organizations are Windmill Hill Pinnacle Association, Green Mountain Conservancy, and Bull Creek Common Lands. Now, Green Mountain Conservancy and Windmill Hill have recently added one part-time employee to help with their capacity, but it's really important to understand that the organizations we'll hear from tonight are volunteer-led entities. Most of the work that they've accomplished has been through volunteer effort, and in some cases over several decades. As a side note, I'd like to also recognize two other organizations that do amazing work in our region, also all volunteer. The Friends of the West River Trail, who work in Dummerston and Brattleboro and Londonderry and Jamaica on the West River Trail, and also Putney Mountain Association, who has done a lot of work in the landscape that you'll be hearing about tonight. And if we have time, I'll share a little information about that. Whoops. Skipped ahead. So each of these organizations has its own stories and identities that you'll hear about tonight, but all are made up from Southern Vermont community members who spend their personal time unpaid forming boards and organizing themselves into committees and applying for grants and permits and building community relationships and fundraising to protect this land. And acquiring the land is just one part of it. It's just the beginning. They're also creating trails and other recreational features and protecting their land by controlling introduced species and doing other stewardship work. And they also do a lot of public outreach and educational programs. So they're really an important part of this community, all, largely from volunteer effort. This is just one landscape in the corner of Vermont. And the way these folks work together could be a model for other communities. And especially as we're looking to meet some big goals for conservation in the next 4 years under Act 59. So our Vermont Land Trust, we intersect with these organizations because we help support the acquisitions and we hold conservation easements on much of the land. For those who are new to conservation easements, a conservation easement is a voluntary, permanent legal agreement that a landowner enters into. Essentially, it's a type of deed that restricts most types of development, especially residential and commercial development. And the purpose is to protect usually important natural resources. And Vermont Land Trust, as the holder of conservation easements, becomes legally responsible for ensuring those restrictions are upheld forever. And so not all conservation easements require public access. We have a number of private lands with conservation easements that don't, but all of the lands that we hold conservation easements on that we'll discuss tonight do have a requirement that they're open to the public. So all the land we're discussing today is open for public access forever. And it's also very important to note that the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board, which is an independent state-funded entity, helped fund the acquisitions of these lands, and also they co-hold the conservation easements with Vermont Land Trust. So just going to provide a little context. There are some probably exceptions to this. We'll probably hear about lands in different areas of Windham County, but for the most part, the land that we're discussing today is part is along and around the Windmill Hill Ridge line. It's a prominent ridge that stretches from north to south for about 13 miles and through 7 towns, stretching from Rockingham and Athens through Brookline, Westminster, Putney, Dummerston, and Newfane. And just to orient to the east, because there aren't a lot of roads on my map here, to the east is 91 and Route 5, and to the west is the West River and Route 30. And so this land this map is showing the protected publicly accessible land in this area, about 7,000 acres. And it includes in gray municipal lands and some state land and federal land. The colors are our conservation partners that we'll hear from tonight. And of that 7,000 acres, over 5,500 acres has been protected by these four entities. Putney Mountain Association isn't here tonight, but they have done a lot of work on this landscape. And I should add that a big reason why this is important, this area has been identified as one of the most important areas to protect forest land. You can see in green that the green shading are the highest priority and highest priority interior forest blocks and connectivity blocks. And so this land conservation has really moved ahead conservation of this area, which is really important for wildlife habitat, climate resilience, water quality, economy, recreation. And so we'll hear from our partners tonight also just the tremendous amount of biodiversity that has been protected through this massive effort. Can't wait to hear about that. And then I also just wanted to say that I'm not only a Vermont Land Trust employee, I am a visitor on my time off to these properties. All of these photos were taken on my days off when I was just out enjoying the land. It's wonderful. These are wonderful places. I hope you visit. And before I pass it to John, I just wanted to say that Vermont Land Trust is so proud of our conservation partnerships with these organizations. We are continuously inspired by their great work and their profound impact. And with that, I would like to pass it to John. I'm going to stop sharing. Give me 1 second. There we go.
Great. Thanks. Thank you, Jennifer. And thank you to Jennifer and Sam and the Vermont Land Trust for everything you do to support what we're doing along with the HCB and other partners. All right, I'm sharing my slides. Is that full screen? Okay. So
I'm not seeing anything yet. Are other people? Sorry.
Is it not shared? I'm sorry.
Not seeing anything yet, John. Sorry. Take your time.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Have it now?
There we go. Yep.
Yeah. My apologies.
Perfect. No problem.
So the map Jennifer had up was actually probably a lot better than this slide. My apologies. But this shows that we one of the certainly the main ridge and trails that we have. Before I get into sort of our holdings and what we've done, I thought I might just say a little bit about how we got started, because I think it's also a good story about getting something good done together as a community in Vermont. It started in the early 1990s. A young man who grew up in Westminster West, Jamie Latham, died in a canoeing accident. And his mother, Allison Latham, and others wanted to do something to remember him by. And one of the places Jamie had really loved was a cabin on the Windmill Hill ridgeline, known as the Pinnacle, at about 1,683 feet, that folks in the village used to go up and visit. And it's really an amazing view to the west. It's sort of a sweeping view, which you'll see in a minute, of southern Vermont. You can see down to Mount Greylock. The main thing, you're looking straight across at Stratton and Mount Snow. You can see the GMP wind turbines on Searsburg you can see Equinox, and then you can up to the north. You can see Bromley, Okemo, Ascutney, and Killington. And it's interesting. I had my family's come up to Westminster West, and I've lived here now for 30 years. But we came up in the 70s, and as a kid, I had no idea that this pinnacle existed in this view in the village, and it just changed my whole conception of this small village covered by two ridges, and instead it's really you get a sense of really being in a big part of southern Vermont. So anyway, Jamie they were looking to try to do something to remember Jamie, and a family had bought the Pinnacle, and they were from Connecticut, and they're part-time, and they were concerned because people were leaving beer cans, and there was teenagers going up there, and they had young children, and they were kind of concerned about it. And at first they started to close off access, and Allison and some other people in Westminster West said, "Hey, how can we change this and reopen it?" And they worked out started the Pinnacle, worked out an arrangement with the family, changed the location of the trail. The family from Connecticut, who still have a house and live part-time in Westminster West, they I can't remember whether it was donated or sold, but the land that's the Pinnacle itself to the association. And so it was really a win-win where everyone came together to find a good solution. And since then, the organization continued to expand with trails down connecting to Putney Mountain, and then also up to the north. And as I think you can see, we've got holdings in Athens, Brookline, Grafton, Rockingham, Townsend, and Westminster. A couple of years ago, we acquired a 615-acre parcel in the viewshed just to the west of the Pinnacle called Lily Pond Highlands. We'll get into that in a little bit. It wasn't shown in Jennifer's map, but we also have a holding along the Saxons River called Bald Hill, which is to the east near I-91. And then we've done a fair amount to protect some land in the Grafton, Athens area as well, to the north, not right on Windmill Hill Ridge, but certainly near it. And the big things that we really are focusing on is connectivity for wildlife, certainly conservation, and recreation, and access to trails. Has also been something that we've always done. So, for instance, you can see we've got these 29 miles of trails, maintained and open to the public. You can do all sorts of non-motorized activities: hiking, snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, biking, bird watching, and hunting. We allow hunting. In the cabin, people can, what we call it a cabin, it's really kind of a lean-to now. People can stay there, 275 people in the last fiscal year. And we have a good website I recommend people go to when they want to, and we get a fair amount of traffic there. I mentioned Lily Pond Highlands. This is a property, there had been some logging. There was a big main logging road in it. We were able to acquire it. The logging road runs up to this beautiful beaver pond. There's some very critical ecological habitat there. There's bear habitat. It's got the headwaters to Grassy Brook, and it's just a pretty spectacular parcel to have protected. We also have an Act 250 permit to build a loop trail away from some of the most ecologically sensitive land. But that's going to be coming down it'll loop down to a parking lot, which we also put in about, I think, 8 or 10 cars. And the beauty of that as well is it connects to a trail right at the Athens-Brookline border, right across the road that leads up to the Pinnacle. So there's, connectivity of wildlife and then also connectivity of trails. We, as I think with all the groups here, we care a lot about education, and we're going to be doing even more on that. We sponsor a naturalist with the Nature Museum at Grafton who goes on trips with school groups and shows and talks to the kids about various features along the trails. And that's obviously a very important part of our mission. We just put out our spring newsletter and talked about in there. We've just received a bequest from Anthony Tepfer, who was at a jewelry store in Bellows Falls and then in Keene, and that's helping us with sort of some long-term stability and acquisition and programming. So we're very grateful to have that. And let's see, we've got just a couple of other photos. This is at one of the trail crossings. You can see Putney Mountain 4 miles to the south, and some of the other trails leading up. One thing we want to try and do is to get more people. There's several. We have a lot of trails, but we have sort of 2 trails, or one trail, the Holden Trail, that gets the most traffic. And we do ultimately want to encourage people to use some of our other trails for any number of reasons. Plus, they're a lot of fun to go on. This is glacial erratic in I guess this would be this would be Grafton in our Athens Dome parcel. So that's one of the things to see there. That leads up to Ledge Brook. And then this is the view, or the partial view, from the Pinnacle itself. Lots of people do bring dogs. I'm a dog owner. We did recently start requiring that people keep their dogs on leashes. But still, they're certainly welcome. And then this is one of my favorite places in Vermont. I think we call it the Savannah, or some people have referred to it as the Savannah. It's a grove of maple trees, and there's something in the roots of the maple trees that somehow prevent other competing trees from growing, but the grass can grow up underneath it. And if I've got that wrong, I'm sure there's some people in our audience who will please correct me, but that was my general impression. But it's just it's a spectacular area just to walk through. And our trails are open year round. I've snowshoed up there when there's been a couple feet of snow. Our trails very temporarily are closed right now because of mud season. But that's just a short-term blip. So we also have a video that I think, Sam, are you going to play that? A resident in Westminster West did with a drone that a year ago in the winter, that'll give you a sense of what it's like to go up one of the main trails.
Yeah,
so
thanks, John. I'll get that queued up. Actually, while you're stopping sharing, I'll just say that you mentioned the overnight guests at the on the Pinnacle. I think maybe even in that fiscal year, I was one of those guests. So really appreciative of that option to stay up there. It's really a beautiful
Great.
spot.
Yeah.
All right, so let me get this going. All right, so hopefully, is it all full screen, looking good? All right. Oh, come on. Maybe I need to make it a little less better quality. There we go.
Thanks, Tim. I think there actually might have been a bandwidth problem there because the video normally plays like it's seamless. It's not as if it's staggered shots. So I wonder if we could put the link. Is there a way that we can give the to people who are watching and they can watch
right ahead? Yeah,
and they can
realize. Yeah, it's tricky to share videos. So yeah.
But it's definitely it's sort of it's like you'll get different experience if you see it where it's a sort of a seamless glide through the trail. And thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I think we'll pass it over to Mary Ellen.
Okay. Let's see.
That's good.
Okay. So nice to be here with you all tonight. I'm Mary Ellen Copeland, and I'm with the Green Mountain Conservancy. Whoops, why aren't we moving here? We got a little,
There you go.
There we go. Okay. And I just want to quickly share with you the mission of the Green Mountain Conservancy to acquire, conserve, and advocate for the protection of forest lands in southern Vermont, to ensure their natural character, their aesthetic and inspirational value, to protect wildlife corridors, to promote carbon sequestration and biodiversity, to undertake related initiatives that help people to understand, appreciate, and steward these lands, and to improve the quality of life in southern Vermont by providing appropriate care for these lands. So we have Deer Run Nature Preserve, which is 954 acres. We have Old Oaks Headwaters Preserve, which is 197 acres. We have Canoe Brook, which is 115 acres. And we have Hunter Brook, which is 111 acres. And just an interesting point is that both Canoe Brook and Hunter Brook are pieces of land that were donated to us. Canoe Brook was donated to the Green Mountain Conservancy by the ancestors of the settlers of the land. They settled the land in the 1700s, and it's been in the family all that time, and now it's come to the Green Mountain Conservancy. And Hunter Brook, Canoe Brook is in the eastern part of Dummerston, and a lot of people know where Canoe Brook is. And it's got a very nice trail at this point and has some huge white oak trees. And Hunter Brook is in the corner of Williamsville, and it's 111 acres, and somebody bought it thinking that they were going to do something with it, and then their life changed, and now it belongs to the Green Mountain Conservancy. And we like to encourage people to think about that with land that they're not using and that they care about, that they might consider conserving. In process, we're working on conserving 245 acres in Newfane Village, the Newfane Village Nature Preserve, and Winter Wren, which is 538 acres in Marlborough. And for both of those, Newfane Village and Winter Wren, we're working closely with the Vermont Land Trust, as we did with the Deer Run Nature Preserve, which in Deer Run we preserved in 3 different pieces. And so I'm going to take you on a little trip through the Deer Run Nature Preserve. And this is a map, and I hope you can see it, of the Deer Run Nature Preserve. I guess, I don't know, you can't see my fingers, but this is the West River, is the blue line coming down through. We bought this in 3 pieces. One of the pieces to the right was the first piece, and it was the Green Mountain Conservancy's first land purchase, and we worked closely with the Vermont Land Trust, and they really taught us how to do this. It was amazing, and it was wonderful to work with them. I don't think we would have been able to do it without them. And then to the left is a 900-acre piece, and that is you saw the picture of the ridge and how the ridge comes down through. And on this map, the ridge is coming right down through the middle of this piece. And so you go up the ridge on the trails that you can see on the map, go down the other side, and you come to the West River. And before you get to the West River, there's an incredible 40 acres of fields that bobolinks enjoy. Very beautiful place. So we conserved a piece in the right-hand side, then in the left-hand side, and then another smaller piece to the south. And it's well covered with really good trails, and people love hiking there. I just wanted to point out to the south, east of the 30-acre piece that you see coming down, there are 2 private landowners, one that has 65 acres and one that has 100 acres. And both of those, because we conserved all the rest, both of those pieces are now conserved with the Vermont Land Trust by their owners. And I think it's a wonderful thing to encourage people to do that sort of thing. So it's made a really big block of land. And I'll talk about that. It's a wildlife corridor that we, and I'll show you some pictures of what we found on the wildlife corridor. So if you take Route 30 up the West River Valley, you'll see the long covered bridge. Everybody knows the covered bridge. And in the background is the Deer Run Nature Preserve. So you get a sense of where this is. In order to actually get to the trailhead, you want to go across the bridge, take a left, keep going out, stay along the river when you can. And finally, after 2 miles, you'll come to the Deer Run Nature Preserve trailhead. This is the gate. And we're proud to advertise the Vermont Land Trust right there at the gate, because that's really important. It's allowed us to make this all happen. It's been lots of work to do this. This is just a representation of the work, but it's been lots of work. These guys are actually carrying a heavy steel girder up a side hill because there was a stream coming down off the side of the mountain, and it's a cane terrace left over from the glaciers. And when we bought the property, we made a trail right through there. It went right through the stream bed. Didn't seem to make any difference because people could just walk through it. And then we had a big flood event, and people could no longer walk through it. So we ended up building a bridge so that it would, people would continue to have access. And these guys are doing the hard work of carrying up the steel beam. This is at the trailhead. There's Roger Haydock to the left. He's done a lot of work building trails, and he often leads hikes for us. And many of the people who come on our hikes then eventually end up becoming involved with our efforts in one way or another, either through volunteer work, through contributing. And so we've developed a really large group of people who really enjoy these lands and work with us to keep them conserved. This is the beginning of the trail. It's a very easy trail at the beginning, and one of the reasons I like that is because that part of the trail, which is easy and flat, takes you to the bridge. This is the wonderful bridge that we built, and it's people like you can see on the bridge, older people, people with kids can come on that trail and come out as far as the bridge, and it makes a wonderful short walk. So while most of the walks on the Deer Run Nature Preserve are much longer, this is a short walk to a very special place, and many of these people are also our donors. So they really appreciated that we built that bridge. So when you go up the trail a little further, you'll see the regular white pines that are all over everywhere. And you'll see that if you take a closer look, you'll see that some of those really have a rosy color to them. And they're the red pines. And after the hurricane of 38 came through this area and took down lots and lots of trees, especially white pines. And so the person who was owning and running the nearby farm at Deer Run planted a whole plantation of red pine trees, and they still exist in some form. Some of them have fallen, but it just reminds us of how the forest can change either by what we as humans do, farmer planting a lot of red pine trees, or and big storms. Whoops, going the wrong way. So continuing up the trail, you can see how beautiful it is. It's just a glorious trail. So even if you start at the bottom and you just hike for 45 minutes, you're going to come to just beauty on all sides. Groups and individuals explore the whole of Deer Run, especially the beginning trails. There's always groups out there. And when you get up, you hike a couple of miles, and you get to the top of the ridge, and this is the sign that you'll come to, and it can go off in all sorts of different directions. It's interesting to see that the signs that we have are very similar to the Windmill Hill Pinnacle signs, and that's because it's the same people that provide the information on how to do the signs. We work together in that way. So just want you to notice that. If you go to the monument trail, for some reason, this pile of rocks has been called the monument. And the reason it's called the monument is because it's laid up rock and nobody can figure out why. Why did somebody come and lay up rock? It's almost as big as a car. And I remember the forester we were working with at first, we didn't know about this. And he said, there's a pile of rocks up there that's as big as a car, and people laid it up and I don't know why. And we've talked with people from the Native American community. We've talked with farmers. Nobody can understand why somebody did this. But anyway, it's a nice place to go. And as a kind of a place, it's a very wonderful hike. But if you take the shoulder trail, which is just before you get to the summit, you have these magnificent views all the way up the West River Valley. Fantastic views. There's another one. It's just amazing. There's amazing views from Deer Run. We have power lines crossing in a couple of places. And sometimes I wish they weren't there, but the thing that they provide for us not only is early successional habitat, which the birds love, but they provide beautiful, beautiful views like these. And as you go through the woods, you'll notice the pillow and cradle topography. And if you can see it in this picture, that there's a pillow and a cradle where trees have dumped over in the past. And I understand that if you stand on the pillow and look across the cradle, you'll see which way the wind was blowing that took down the tree. And these trees have been gone for a long time and new trees have come up. But what I can tell from that is that the winds came from the southeast, and that's where the winds came from in the hurricane of 38. And if you want some interesting reading on the lands and the landscape in southern Vermont, reading the book, it's called 38, and it's written by Stephen Long, and I'm in the midst of it now, and it is fascinating. So we have acres and acres of forest on its way to old growth. We're actually recognized by the Old Growth Forest Network. We have many acres of hemlock forest that provide winter deer yards. We have many, many white-tailed deer. And as at Windmill Hill, we also have some wonderful places that are covered. The floor is all sedge, and so when you're walking there, it's magical. It's a very magical place. I would suggest that it'd be a good place to stop and have a picnic, but you really don't want to sit on those sedges, and so you just look at them. They're beautiful. Remnants of the past are hidden in the early successional forest. So if you look closely, there's a big old tree in the background, a big old gnarled tree that was there a long, long time. Oops. Here's an old growth tree. It's a yellow birch, and somebody girdled it a long time ago. And this tree said, "The heck with you. I'm not going to die because you girdled me." And so you can see, if you look at the bottom here, you can see how the roots grew up around the girdling. It's an amazing, amazing tree. This is a massive oak tree. And when we first bought the property, I became very fond of that tree and would often go to visit that tree. It was just kind of a place that I liked to go. And one time I went and looked around, and I couldn't see it, and it had fallen over. And I was incredulous. Anyway, it was a massive and wonderful tree. This is one of many shagbark hickory trees on the land. The northern long-eared bats like to use these trees for their maternal nesting sites. They get up under the bark and nest in these trees. Very beautiful. And we have lots of early successional land. It's very, very important to have this land. There isn't as much of it in Vermont as there used to be. And it's very important for the bird species. I've gone up there, and it's numerous birds in the springtime and in the summer and through into the fall. Glorious. The West River forms the western boundary of the property. And along the river are these amazing Canada lilies, just beautiful. And 47 acres of pristine fields along the river. And we manage those for bobolinks. And these are kind of a geologic feature from when the land was glaciated and then it moved out. It left these flat great flat places along the river. And I always think that Native Americans must have found this a wonderful place to have an encampment. And I talked about managing for bobolinks. Here they are. So one of the things I really wanted to stress with you is that Deer Run is a major wildlife corridor. And we have Bob Etzweiler sets trail cams up there. And I'd like to let people know that he does that work for us. And so the rest of the pictures that I'm going to share with you are from Bob took them. So we have multiples of turkeys. We have coyotes. At our house, we can hear them at night. We have bears. I've had more bear encounters on Deer Run that I've ever had in all the hiking that I've done. And I've learned to get along quite well with the bears. We have in the southern part of the property, there's a wetland, and we have had several beaver families in there, and I've heard from neighbors that there have been beavers living there for a long, long time. We see bobcats, we see red fox, and we see deer. And we see lots of porcupines. So if you come to Deer Run, be sure to keep your dog on a leash. And so that's what I've wanted to tell you. These are some of the people who are enjoying this shagbark hickory somehow got bent. And it's a wonderful place for kids to play. So please be in touch with us. Check out our website. Email us, phone us, write to us, donate to us. Talk to us about your land if you are interested in having your land conserved. If you're interested in your land being part of the Green Mountain Conservancy, we're the people to talk to. So thanks so much.
Thanks, Mary Ellen.
Okay.
While you're stopping sharing and Hannah's going to set up, I just wanted to mention that in the chat, a few people send me messages directly, and I'll tell everybody that in the follow-up email, there's a request about sending locations for trailheads. So I'll definitely send all the websites of all 3 and more 5 organizations that we've talked about, and also talk about some recommended hikes, because one of the reasons I planned this for this time of year is, as was mentioned earlier, it's mud season, so we want to make sure we whet people's appetite for once those trails open up, you can get out there and see them. So pass it off to you, Hannah.
All right, great. Thank you. And Sam, should I just ask you how much time I have, or should I be looking at the clock here?
I think we can do 10. We can go over a little bit for some questions. So yeah, you can take the 10 is fine.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so Bull Creek Commonlands, we are kind of the new kid on the block, and it is so great to be here in the company of some of the giants whose shoulders we're standing on, who have taught us how to do this conservation process, and really kind of like opened the doors to VLT and VHCB for funding. So we're really in the same neighborhood. I can advance here. Yeah, so we're defining our geographic focus area as the Bull Creek and Grassy Brook watersheds and adjacent watersheds, and there's definitely overlap with the other organizations that we're talking with here. This is a really neat valley, and I guess the reason that we sprung off and started about 5 years ago was really to like do this same thing in a community with land that's important to our local community that was telling us it wanted to be conserved. So our service focus areas, so our mission is really focused on the ecological value of the land and supporting that. We want to ensure continued public access, which is, has been really a Vermont tradition for so long that people have been able to wander on private land that's not posted. And that's been changing. So we just wanted to make sure that there was land available for people to access. Really looking at climate resilience and mitigation. looking at the land through a watershed lens really puts us in relationship with some of the flood events that have been happening. And we'll see with our Headwaters project how those wetlands are really going to help some of the communities downstream. And then we're balancing recreation and wildlands. So we're looking at like the places that are great for trails and like more human traffic. And then we're also looking at balancing that with areas that are still open to the public, but we're probably not going to build trails into some of the areas. So zooming in a little bit more, this is our current holdings. So there's two parcels. There are two parcels now, and you've probably gotten the sense from the other presenters that a lot of this work that we're doing is kind of putting land back together from its history of parcelization. So, so the larger piece here was 3 separate parcels, and you can kind of see there's a light green chunk here, which is an in-process add-on. So I'm going to talk a little bit about each of these. The smaller piece in green is the Athens Community Forest, also known as the Raymond Bemis Community Forest. And then the larger parcel is 340 acres, which is the Bull Creek Headwaters land. So the Athens Community Forest is pretty small in the range of land that we've been hearing about tonight, but there's some really like lovely diverse features. So in this 1 mile loop trail, you're going right along the Bull Creek. You can explore some sandy glacial terraces or outwash areas. And there's a ledgy area as well. And there's also a vernal pool that is totally hopping right now. Maybe more so today than when we had snow a couple of days ago. So this is just a few shots of what it's like. The Bull Creek just has so many different personalities as you walk along it. So this is one where it's really carved out, but you'll see areas that are wide and gravelly. And there's some waterfalls and cascades over ledges as well. The loop trail will take you up onto the hemlock forest and ledges. And it's pretty neat to wander along. You can't really get a sense of how dramatic it is from the photos, but it's really a lovely ledge edge to cruise on. And when you come back down, we've got a very safe and sturdy bridge for all of your friends, which is also built with volunteer labor, of course. And just a shot of the floodplain forest area on the left there, and some of the folks who enjoy using the community forest. The board members in this photo are myself waving, and Deborah and Andy in the back. So the community forest is really a place that we like strongly invite everybody to come. It doesn't doesn't require blocking a half a day. It's in a 1 mile loop. Some people run it. Definitely been a lot of snowshoeing, and it's just a really nice kind of like morning and afternoon spot to get outside. I mean, any time of the day, but I think a lot of people are there before and after work. And this is off of Brookline Road in Athens. So the other land, the Headwaters land, is in contrast that this is pretty remote and rugged. It's amazing land. It's so important for the health of the watershed to have all of these wetlands protected. I'm just gonna point out on this large map here, if you can see it, but the parking areas are in blue here, and this one is in Athens, and you can download these maps on our website. So at the end of Sam Farr Road in Athens, there's a little pull out on the town road. And over on the Townsend side, you would go up Deer Valley Road and make a few turns, and eventually you may have to actually walk to this. So it's pretty remote. The only trail that we're gonna build here is this new little red line, which connects the Townsend side to the Sam Farr Road, which was an old town road that no longer goes through. This land has also had, it has been working forest. It has had many timber harvests within the last couple of years. And so we are doing some restoration work. We are just planning to support forest regeneration for the next unknown number of years here. It does make it difficult to get around. So here's a before and after photo of some of the restoration work that we're doing with the help of the USDA, NRCS. So like the gully that everyone's looking at on the left there was the result of a logging operation leaving without putting in water bars and in the road washing out. And a lot of sediment went down the Bull Creek. So by doing this work and putting in the water bars that you see on the right, we're really helping water quality, helping that topsoil to stay up on the hill, and supporting those forests to regrow and hold their soil. And some more restoration work. One of the stories of one of the parcels we purchased was that it was on the left here, there was a very large house lot cleared. I mean, what was cleared was like the view area from what a potential house would be down to the little pond in the background, which is the same pond that was on the cover photo of this presentation. And so we thought that it would be better to have this headwaters pond of our watershed owned by us and conserved and open to the public than to have a luxury home built on it. So we've been protecting some hardwood seedlings that are coming up and hoping that this will regrow into forest and a good buffer for the headwaters there. And then the right photo is a volunteer, like practically invisible behind a hedge of glossy buckthorn, which, as you might know, is a very vigorous invasive. And we've probably pulled thousands of these over the last couple of years. And so continuing to try to do that and encourage biodiversity and native plants to grow up. So this is what the Sam Farr, like the old road, looks like. And, just to give folks a heads up that like, you're very welcome to go up here, but I mean, this is actually sort of a town right of way. So we may eventually work with the town to try to like make this more accessible, but it's a very, very rugged hike. If you do choose to visit though, I think it's worth your while, and the rest of this presentation will just be a short tour of mostly the wetlands on the property. So this is the Headwaters Pond, which is a 6-acre pond, multiple beaver lodges, lots of water birds, really interesting sedges and wetland plants around the edges. And this is just some more close-ups. There's real diverse forests around the edges, but one of the spots has lady slippers. And then this is kind of in the middle of the property. There's a forested wetland, which has many different forest types in it. I've encountered bears in here, and there's some black ash. I won't get too like natural community nerdy on it, but there's some really interesting places, and yeah, really cool plants and wildlife to find out here, especially if you're a birder. And then this one is also, so this is like an open wetland that is right at the top of the Bull Creek proper as it starts flowing down the hill. And this end of it is like maybe an intermediate fen type wetland. This is, there's, you can see over in the right, there's a tiny patch of Phragmites, which is an invasive, which is something that we're also working in this area to remove and restore. And yeah, all across this headwaters land, there's some really huge red oak trees. So the one that Andy and I are standing in front of here is about 5 feet in diameter. Also starting to fall over, like Mary Ellen's oak, though. There. And yeah, it was hard to choose just a couple of wildflower pictures, but this season is coming up, and there's yeah, some beautiful rose begonias in one of the smaller wetlands, as well as this rock harlequin. I forget the Latin name. In one of the ledgy areas. And I don't have the animal photos that Green Mountain Conservancy does, but we have some small and some large out here. There's a hermit thrush nest on the ground, and the moose are all over. The moose are especially really loving that early successional habitat post logging out there right now. So yeah, so yeah, please visit the website for more information, and feel free to reach out with any questions to us. Yeah, happy to talk at more length anytime.
Excellent. Thanks, Hannah. And we are a little over time, so I don't know how much time we'll have for Q&A. We also won't be able to feature Putney Mountain Association too much, but we'll certainly, like I said, send some follow-up information about all the organizations, including Putney Mountain Association. And there is one Q&A question that came in about wildlife linkages, and I know Jennifer had mentioned Vermont conservation design in her, and I think that might tie in too. So I'll send some information about that. And but yeah, is there anything else people wanted to add about wildlife corridors or wildlife connectivity before we move to wrapping up? Oh, John, you're muted. Oh, you're still muted.
Sorry, since people were featuring trees, did I successfully share?
That's great. Yeah.
Champion ash tree that we have. That's
wow,
a pretty good one too. So we're all very fortunate that we have these great trees in the woods.
That's amazing.
I mean, I'll just say that all of the work that these folks are doing are advancing a lot of the goals that the state and other folks that are involved in conservation have for connecting forested landscapes. They're really important for allowing wildlife to move and for building resilience in the face of climate change, protecting watersheds. Hannah's was a really good example of like building that conserved parcel to protect, all of the upper part of that watershed. So we could go on. It's a big topic, but all of that, that concept ties all of this work together really nicely.
Yeah, totally. Great. Well, I think we unfortunately will have to wrap it up. Again, I do encourage everybody to get out on the land once the trails dry out. And yeah, we also, Vermont Land Trust does have some more events coming up. We don't have any more webinars on tap, but we do have a number of in-person events, a bunch of events in May. We also have a summer farm tour series that starts in May. So encourage you to head to vlt.org/events to check those out. Again, yeah, I'll follow up with an email with some resources, and it'll take a few days to get the video edited and uploaded. But once that's done, be on the lookout for an email. And thank you all so much to our panelists for joining us. And thank you all for attending. And have a wonderful night.